The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Knicks win Game 5, extended to Game 6 in dominant fashion.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
The Knicks, where's this been? Where was this closing effort in Game 1? Because literally it followed such a similar script, sort of. Without the Pacers going nuclear to start the game, but the Knicks keep them kind of at arm's length, push the lead out. And then they managed to hold on to it in this game. 111-94 is your final total. I think we have to look. We've been kind of tough on the guy recently, and not without good reason. But this game, brilliant from Jalen Brunson. This is why this guy's the star of this team. 32 points, 5 boards, 5 assists in an elimination game. 12 of 18 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3. Only gets 4 free throw attempts in this one, goes 4 of 4 on them, though, does not miss a single one. It just a clutch of all clutch performances. I mean, came out, started as strong as he started in any game in this series, other than maybe Game 1. He did start Game 1 pretty strong as well. But the way that the Knicks were getting him looks, it was immediately apparent that the strategy was, let's stop having Brunson get mugged at the half-court line. Let's stop having him bring the ball up the floor every single time and have to deal with Nesmith being up in his chest, tiring him out, getting all up in his business. And we see Brunson moving off ball and then beating Nesmith that way. And it was brilliant. It was a really great way to start the game. And huge props to Tibbs, to Brunson, to whoever's idea that all was. It worked flawlessly, and it got Brunson going early in this game and got him going often in this game.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're throwing it to me. I thought this first segment was just going to be like a 10-minute Landry Shamet victory lap from you, but I appreciate your generosity.
The role players can wait till segment 3. Okay, I mean, I love Landry Shamet.
I hate to break it to you, Alex. Landry Shamet's a star, so
I guess so.
I thought we'd be starting with him, but that's okay. I think you nailed it, though. I think the perhaps the defining battleground of this series has been Indiana's ability to generate space for Tyrese Haliburton, and maybe even less so. Some of that is Indiana. I think even more so the Knicks' inability to put pressure on Haliburton would be the better way to phrase that. And conversely, Aaron Nesmith bulldozing through screen after screen after screen. And even when Jalen Brunson was scoring, right, he was it took everything, right? He was grinding. You could with great players, sometimes you say they make it look easy. You could see the work with Jalen Brunson. He's not often made it look easy. He's made it look spectacular at times. He's not often made it look easy in this series. He made it look easy to start this ball game. And conversely, Tyrese Haliburton, it never looked easy for him in this one. 8 points, 6 assists, 2 for 7 from the field. Terrible game from Tyrese Haliburton, coming off one of the best conference finals performances you will ever see, while Brunson on the other end of the floor pours in 14 of the Knicks' first 25. That very first play of the game you talk about, I thought it was just a great troll job from Tom Thibodeau, because if you go back and you watch the first play of Game 1 and Game 2, I think they were all the exact same play, and it was just slight variations of them. I don't remember the difference in Game 2, but in Game 1, it was Brunson screening for OG coming off it when 2 stayed with Brunson and getting a dunk or a layup. I think they ran it again in Game 2. They might have ran it again in Game 4. They love running the opening play for OG. This time the Pacers are all right, screw you, man. We're on to it. It's almost like a Tom and Jerry bit. And Tibbs just pulls the snack at the last second. Brunson pops up, drives for a floater. That was great. The step through he had on Nesmith at about the 3-minute mark was just insane. I have no idea how he made that. And then just a beautifully intricate play between him and Mitch, to your point on getting him free. I thought Mitch having the best screening game of this series so far was a really key point in getting him going. So Mitch, it's a DHO. He rejects the screen, but then Mitch flips the screen so he can use it. Then Mitch rolls underhanded lefty lob to Mitch. 6 points and 1 assist in just over 2 minutes. a ridiculous start. 3 in Turner's eye on a switch, then gets another one in transition that made it 23-13 Knicks. Got Halliburton on a switch again and put a jerk fade in his eye. That's what got him to 14. It was only the 7th shot in the series he took against Halliburton one-on-one. SVG had that stat, but a couple of times in this game, he was able to go at SVG or at Hallie, in the first half to great effect. Alex, just to conclude the early portion of the Jalen Brunson talk, because I think there's a whole nother conversation to be had about his second half. I thought the single biggest thing here for Brunson was when those shots are going down, the Knicks actually get to set their defense, right? You don't see Indiana running. You don't see them screaming in transition. And this double big lineup where I was wrong about for a second time in our last episode, I said the Knicks had to scrap it. It looked really, really good because they could actually set their defense. And Indiana, even off of makes, just did not have quite that same relentless pace in MSG. But I think Brunson coming out, hitting all those shots early really made a big difference in slowing down. And they never really found that rhythm or that pace.
Yeah, and credit to them too for making the double big work a little more on offense as well. I thought that it was finally at the start, like Cat just spacing, and it made all the difference. Like Cat only made 1 3 in this game. It was his first field goal, didn't make another one after that. And yet the ripple effect of that just like spread throughout the whole rest of the game. I feel like he got it. I mean, he deserves to be treated with the utmost respect on the 3-point line, obviously, but it just kind of set the table for the Knicks consistently, and Brunson consistently looking to drive and kick out to Cat and then let Cat attack a tilted defense. Like he destroyed. And I mean, I'm sure that we'll talk about him more in the next segment as we kind of, work with him next, because I mean, I thought that he had just 24-13, just another phenomenal game for him. Also crazy stat on the TNT broadcast. Cat and Brunson are the first pair of teammates in a conference finals to score 20 or more each in each of the first 5 games since Kobe and Shaq in 2001. Just nuts stuff. I can't believe that there's not been another team that has had that happen. If I'm being
also
only
3rd of all time with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, which is crazy.
Which is also insane. I mean, just crazy stats there. Crazy rarefied air. I mean, anytime you're up there with some of the Laker greats, that's always a good thing. But yeah, I thought that what they did early, just with the spacing, with embracing cutting again as well, and then with actually using Mitch as a vertical threat again. I mean, it's just there's so many great things with how Brunson approached it and just how the team approached it. But like, really, it all comes down to if Brunson is, it's like what you said, if Brunson's making those shots early, it affects everything. It affects 1, you go up on the scoreboard. 2, you get more time to reset your defense. And credit to them too for playing that much better than I think they've played at any point during the series, because we've seen, multiple times during the series, and it's been, well documented, like the Pacers love to run off a make also. So credit to the Knicks. They did a really solid job, I think, of getting the defense set, right off of a make to prevent the Pacers from doing that. But yeah, for Brunson, just a crazy open to this game that just ultimately, I think, set the tone for the whole affair. And like, even when it hit a point where he sat for, I want to say it was like the final 2.5 minutes of the third quarter, like the damage that he did in the third quarter, then doing a very similar but different, like attacking it differently, but having the same scoring effect and going for, what was it, 15 in the third quarter? By the time all was said and done, he had, 16 in the third quarter by the time all was said and done. Just equally impressive third quarter to go with his first quarter, in just kind of like setting the tone early at the beginning of each of these halves and then letting his teammates ride the wave of what he was able to accomplish through the rest of the game. So I thought it was fantastic for him.
Yeah, the third for him was I mean, it was him, Mitch, and Cat, right? And they start off the third on a 4, or maybe this was mid-third, 14-4 run that gets the lead out to 20, which I noted because I was like, all right, that's officially a bigger lead than game 1. Maybe this wouldn't be worse if they blew it because there was so much more time left. And that was also like, I think the exact same lead Boston had on them in game 2. So it was almost a little ominous for me, but like that essentially put the game away. Because in Indiana, I don't believe ever got closer than 10 from that point forward, like, again, it was getting Halliburton to the action. Like, I feel like easier than they have all series. I'm going to have to go back and watch to see how they did that, but they get Hallie on him, and they said simple pick and roll with Mitch, and Brunson just turns the corner, gets a lefty layup. I thought one play that sent a message, like Neesmith was trying to pressure him full court. Brunson catches him with like a little half spin move, gets a step. Brunson dribbles it length of the court, nails him with an arm bar that even for I think should be an offensive foul, but Neesmith does it to him. Nembhard does it to everyone. Like, they just don't call that apparently. Gets an and one layup, strokes a contested three that extended it to 64-48. And then from there, he, after the lead is cut to 12, he's able to draw two, hit McHale on a cut for a layup, comes back down, beats Mathurin for a layup. That was after his cut to 10 a few minutes later. And then a 4-point play to cap that 8-0 run that essentially put this one away. Hit a big two, I thought, with 4.5 minutes left in this game, just to make sure things didn't really get tricky. And then just over and over again was really unselfish, passing out of double teams, keeping the ball moving, set up some swing sequences that got the Knicks good shots, even when they didn't go down late in the fourth quarter. Just a masterful performance from this guy when the Knicks had to have it for the series now. 33 points per game, 65% true shooting. We say it all the time, but I think we've all kind of collectively, not just you and me, Alex, taken for granted like how extraordinarily good this guy is on the offensive side of the ball. And to your point, defensively, just was not nearly as much of an issue in this one as he was.
Do you want to close the thread on the first segment there, or you want to hop into some Karl Anthony Towns talk, because he was phenomenally impressive to me again in this game, and just further went towards shaking whatever soft labels he's ever had in his career. I think can just kind of go out the window after these last couple of games.
Yeah, let's talk Cat. What did you think about him? Because I mean, there were the usual dumb moments, but 17 points, 10 rebounds in the first half, and it feels like maybe the greatest asset of the double big. And it requires Mitchell Robinson playing 12 minutes in the first quarter, which I don't know how tenable that is. You could see 10 minutes in, he was completely and utterly gassed. And that's been the case for a couple of games on a better night from Indiana. Maybe that hurts the Knicks. But I just I love the rhythm they found now. And I guess they had this before, so maybe that's a stupid point. But like with Brunson playing the whole first, Cat comes out halfway through, Cat comes in to start the second. And it just sort of feels like at this point, Indiana, like if it's Cat and three shooters, even like, because it's been a lot of time with Josh Hart, like they have zero answer for him. And maybe they're going to start being even more aggressive, doubling off with Hart's guy. But like those lineups where it's him, Shamet, Wright, Deuce, and either Hart or OG in that spot, like they haven't been able to guard him. And I don't really remember a conference finals where a second option was just like this completely unstoppable. I mean, for this series, like I don't know if people realize like how dominant he's been. 25 points, 12 rebounds, 53% from the field, 42% from three, 81% from the line, whether it's Turner, whether it's Siakam, whether it's Bradley, whether it's Bryant. Like he just mows through these guys.
Yeah, I got to give him huge props. First off, I mean, it was clear early in the game the knee was bothering him.
Yeah.
And he came down a little awkward at one point, and you could see him like limping it off. And, you know, contrary to Stan Van Gundy spending, I don't know, 4 minutes of broadcast time implying that he was faking his injury, I'm fairly certain that it's a for real injury and that he's actually hurting quite a bit because he's been dealing with it for half a season now. But yeah, I mean, just like the fortitude and honestly, the one of the big differences to me in this one was and I know he's been rebounding fairly well the whole series, but there was just a little more, I guess, a little more urgency to his rebounding in this game to me. Like I felt like his box outs were cleaner. I felt like his offensive boards were backbreaking in like a sort of Mitchell Robinson type fashion when he got them. And he ended with just two of them, but like at pretty key junctures. Like one came really late in the game when they like really needed that just to give you that opportunity to breathe out a little bit. Like it was one of those where like your heart started racing a little bit various points in this game when you're like getting those like the war veteran flashbacks to game one of like the shots starting to fall for Indy and whatever. And he did a good job of helping quell that, along with I'll give him credit, even though I don't think he had a fantastic game either. Like Josh Hart had a number of pretty big rebounds down the stretch of this one as well, including a couple offensive. But yeah, just the way that he's attacking whoever, to your point, they throw at him on the perimeter. I mean, Siakam is not a slouch on defense, and is a guy that can move his feet fairly well and stay in front of a lot of players in the NBA. He cannot keep Cat in front of him. It's not even close. I mean, Cat is just taking the enormous first step because of the respect that he has to garner at the 3-point line, which is why it's like, in my opinion, really important to like get at least 1-3 up with him early that he makes. Like, make it a point in the first like 2 minutes, get the ball in his hands, get a 3-point up, let him make one. Just like remind them of the fact that like this guy is arguably the best big man shooter in the history of the NBA. And then everything else comes so much easier for him. And like, I give him props again too. I think the guy is getting, it's impossible to say without watching every single, I've been able to watch every single playoff game, obviously, but from what I've seen, I feel like this guy is getting the worst whistle in the NBA right now in terms of the amount of contact that he absorbs every time he goes in. And yet he's just fighting through it. At certain points earlier in this game, he had a mismatch with I think Nemhard on him and just posts him up, gets like triple teamed and just attempted to be swallowed up and just fights completely through it, keeps the ball tight, and then goes up with a nice little hook shot, makes that one in. It was just kind of like a microcosm. It's like they're sending an army at this guy, and it's like the Avengers line, the like, well, we have an army. Well, we have a cat. Like they can't do anything against him, especially on the inside when he's got just that sheer force of will, unless he's getting hacked, and that's only if they don't get called. So yeah, I think he had a phenomenal game and just did a really good job of reading and reacting and making the smart play for the most part on offense. Obviously, you take the dumb and sometimes retaliatory fouls and just live with it at this point, because what he's giving you otherwise is so valuable.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking your favorites or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
For the first time in this playoffs, the Pacers have lost a game 5.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast.
So much to talk about with this one. The Pacers starters having this rough game. They didn't ever get any juice flowing at all. Cat and Brunson both going at the same time. What the Knicks actually changed. What the Pacers need to do better in Game 6. So much to dive into. For the first time, the Pacers in this postseason will be playing a Game 6. They are fortunate that it will be at home, and they are fortunate that they are the team of response and have been very good at responding to these moments. They have not lost 2 games in a row since March 10th, and they need to respond because they stunk. They flat out stunk, and they know it, right? It doesn't take a genius to look at a 111, excuse me, I almost just said 111 to 94 score line. See everything that went wrong for the Pacers. Benedict Mathurin, 23. No one else with more than 15. Only 3 double-digit scores for the Pacers. Every time it seems like they play their best, they have a lot of balance. The ball movement's there. Lots of guys are stepping up. Today, I feel like the opposite. Almost nobody stepped up. And these players both played moderately well to break out of the situations that the Pacers were put in. But you guys have listened to this podcast enough to know that when a game happens and Siakam and Mathurin are the Pacers' leading scorers, they are good in situations where they can score in a slowed down situation where the game's all gooked up and not going the Pacers' way. However, that usually means the game was not played in the Pacers' style. This one was not at all. The leading topic for a lot of people was Tyrese Haliburton's play. After the game of his life, best postseason game he's ever had in Game 4. Best game he's ever had, period. 2 for 7, 8 points, 6 assists in this one. Not good enough. And we will get to him specifically as an individual in just a second. I thought that his game influenced the thing that I thought was the most alarming for the Pacers, and it was their starting 5 being just awful. Just awful. And Aaron Nesmith's dealing with the ankle injury. He admitted as much post-game that he's not 100% there. He had really short stints throughout the game. He only played a little under 16 minutes in this one, period, like at all. And the starting 5 as a unit only played 7 minutes and 20 seconds. The Pacers lost those minutes by 10 points. They went terrible. They couldn't stop the Knicks starters. They couldn't score at all. This was an offensive loss to me, but that group couldn't defend either. And Haliburton is the biggest part of this because he is the head of the snake. So that is where I think this is a Haliburton discussion, even though the story of the game to me was the entire unit really struggling. When Haliburton can't play the way he wants, everybody uses the word wrong. And he said it on the record. This isn't my opinion. This is his opinion. I agree with him. Everybody says Tyrese Haliburton needs to be aggressive. And they always point to his shot count and the record and all this stuff. And like, there's something to that. But when you ask Tyrese Haliburton about being aggressive, he doesn't see it that way. He sees it as getting 2 feet in the paint. When he can do that, he can get shots he likes. He can get his teammates shots they like. And the Pacers offense flows the best. 7 shots is not enough. I'll admit that. But I thought that was the more concerning part of this game, is that the Knicks had Mikal Bridges playing his best game of the series to me. His defense was fantastic. He was chasing Haliburton around very well off the ball, making it impossible for him to get open. The Knicks were doing a great job away from the play, making it hard for Haliburton to get the ball moving on a catch. And Haliburton doesn't have quite the wiggle to always beat his defender every single time. And so he couldn't quite get 2 feet in the paint like ever. There's always a guy shading. The screen setters for the Pacers were not setting good screens today. All sorts of problems with this. And when Haliburton can't get 2 feet in the paint, not only is he not going to have a great night, see the stats of his we just talked about. And again, I'll talk about him as an individual more later. When he can't get going like that, it makes it harder for the rest of the Pacers to do so. And they have some guys who are capable of breaking through that. Nembhard's been a playoff riser for a lot of this postseason. Miles Turner, up until very recently, has had a good playoffs. Obviously, Siakam just had 30. Nesmith had an awesome start to the series before his ankle injury. Good players. If they're getting worse shots because Haliburton can't create as well as he does at his best, it's tough for any of them to hum, especially when the Knicks are setting the pace of the game and scoring all the time. So the Pacers are pulling the ball out of the net over and over again. So what did that lead to? Aaron Nesmith on a bad ankle, 1 for 8. 0 for 3 on 2s, 1 for 5 on 3s. Miles Turner, 2 for 3. We will talk more about Miles Turner. Oh, this was the worst Miles Turner playoff game this year. 2 for 3. 4 turnovers, 3 fouls. Andrew Nembhard, 3 for 8. 3 for 7 on 2s, missed his only 3. 6 points for Andrew Nembhard, 8 for Tyrese Haliburton, 5 for Miles Turner, 3 for Aaron Nesmith. That is 22 points among 4 starters who have all at various times in this postseason played well. Pascal Siakam scored 15. It took him 13 shots to do it. He missed 4 free throws. He at least found ways to break the game up for the Pacers. He played well with the second unit. Him, Shepard, McConnell, Bradley, Mathurin groups were good. Sometimes Jarris Walker was out there. We'll talk about him. He was pretty good. But the starting lineup together was just terrible. Terrible on offense. Jalen Brunson scored 32 points. The Pacers starters combined barely eclipsed that with 37, I believe. I hope I got that right. 37, yes. That just can't happen. That is the story of the game to me. And it stems from Tyrese Haliburton. In many ways, that makes that the story of the game, especially after the game he just had. But that's what I walked away from this game going, man, they had a lineup of reliable players who all had great moments in the series. Siakam in 2 different games. Nesmith at the end of game 1. And Nesmith many times before his injury. Nembhard was hitting shots early in the series. His defense is important, although Anunoby's a big size mismatch for him. Turner started the series off moderately well. It was terrible. The second most used lineup for the Pacers was Siakam, Toppin, Mathurin, Shepard, McConnell. That was -7. -6 with Toppin on the floor with the starters instead of Siakam. The starters were just bad. Shepard out there for Nesmith and Toppin for Siakam. That happened quite a bit for the same reasons. Siakam's always the first sub out. Nesmith was dealing with injury stuff. That group, -9. In under 2 minutes, they got outscored 2-11. Every starter needed to be better, and none of them were good enough in this game. And that's just the offensive side of the ball. The Knicks starting 5, New Look starting 5 was very good. 13 minutes and 13 seconds for Robinson, Brunson, Bridges, and Anunoby Towns, plus 18 were the Knicks. We're seeing something here in this game, and it is the worst performance from the Pacers starters, maybe in the last 2 playoffs. You could argue some of those early games against the Bucks when they just weren't ready for this yet happened. They couldn't stop anyone. Brunson, 12 for 18 for 32 points. Only took 4 free throws and scored 32 points. Karl Towns kicked their butt, 24 and 13. He only took 4 threes. He was dominating inside, punishing everybody. Anunoby wasn't even good. And the Knicks starters were fantastic. Bridges was amazing on defense. Mitchell Robinson didn't miss a shot and just is a beast on defense. That was the story of Game 5 to me. The Pacers had a chance to clinch a spot in the NBA Finals for the first time in a quarter century, and their starting five, the guys who needed to be ready to go, were not at all ready to go. And many of them were bad, not below expectations, like actively bad players. They know it. This is hardly criticism to them. They'll play in the game. Nesmith said his mentality wasn't right. His ankle's hurting. Halliburton said to put it on him. Siakam said they got outworked, right? It was bad. Turner and Drew. And if I had to point to two guys, I'm really just having trouble keeping my thoughts in order today. I'm so sorry. Turner and Nembhard were the two to me that, I mean, Nesmith's injured, I get it. Are the two that just like they need more from those guys. They're not getting enough offensively from Nembhard recently. 3 turnovers for him again, 4 fouls. He's a little overmatched size-wise with Anunoby. I would wonder if they'll go put him on Brunson in the next game, especially if Nesmith can't play as much or move as much like in this game, and then see if that helps their matchups feel a little more natural. And he's got to make some shots if he's not going to have the defensive impact that he can have. He had 3 steals. He's not having a terrible series, but his offense has been rough, and they need it to be better. And Miles Turner, same thing, this was probably his worst game of this playoffs, maybe the last 2 playoffs, 5 points in 24 minutes. Couldn't get involved on offense, had some ugly turnovers. Not good. Just not good.
The Edmonton Oilers are headed to the Stanley Cup Final for the 2nd straight season against the Florida Panthers.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers.
Anytime you run the goalie from an elimination game in the first 10 minutes of a game, you're doing something right. And I spent a lot of time on yesterday's show before going into game number 5 talking about Corey Perry's small areas of the game, what makes him so effective even at his age. And look, I understand there are people who are going to be hate watching who say he plays with McDavid and Draisaitl. Of course he makes plays happen. But at the same time, as I talked about also on yesterday's show, and the everydayers heard me say it, when you are that smart, when you know that much hockey as Corey Perry knows, the old joke, he's forgotten more about hockey than most of us will ever know, you have an intuitive understanding of where you need to be on the ice to make plays happen. And yes, Connor makes a perfect pass to set that play up, but Perry is right there. And then what's been the other story of the Oilers playoffs this year? Everybody having a moment. It's Janmark, who, God bless him, 2 goals the entire regular season. Someone who you're not expecting to score frequently, if at all. He chips in and had a very noticeable night, probably Janmark's best game of the playoffs so far. And then you're at 2. And then this game really elevates in tenor when McDavid scores that breakaway. That McDavid breakaway had me standing up and pounding my chest and screaming at "Let's go" at the TV. Moments like that are why sports cannot be faked. They cannot be imitated. Yeah, I like a good drama. I love Succession. I love The Sopranos. I love The Wire. That's all fake. To quote the great Spike Lee, who I know is somewhere in New York happy the Knicks won tonight, sports, all of that is fake. You cannot make up the feeling that sports gives you. That is something that happens over time. And over the course of a season like this, you start getting more and more and more invested. And we're going to get there. That's the main crux of our final segment of today's show. But you have a performance like tonight, which pretty good by Oilers standards for the playoffs. I would say they probably played better in game number 4, especially defensively, but this was a really strong performance. The fact this team was without a former 50 goal scorer in Zach Hyman, and it wasn't a glaring issue, speaks volumes about the quality of the depth. And of course, how could I forget? Jeff Skinner, 2nd career Stanley Cup playoff game in his early 30s, gets on the sheet, scores a goal, and that's when I felt something different was going to happen tonight. That is when I felt, okay, we're doing this. It's when I opened Expedia and started looking at flights and hotels, because now this is real. And don't get me wrong, I sat there for most of the second period with a stomach ache and an anxious stomach ache, because with every passing sequence, the Stars kept holding onto the puck in the offensive zone longer and longer. They were able to get on the sheet tonight. You got the Robertson goal, which was a really nice play off a Brett Kulak turnover. I thought Kulak in particular had a hard night, but on a night like tonight, you don't want to single guys out for having a rough night when by and large Kulak has been one of the Oilers' best defensemen, and frankly, the Oilers' entire defense this playoffs, sans those first two games against the Kings, has been really good. So who am I to nitpick a mediocre performance in the midst of an otherwise really strong game? And when the Oilers show you they have the capacity to play in these up-tempo, we're going to let you get your perimeter play. You could cycle around the ends all you want. You can take your point shots. We're going to block them. You can take your flank shots. We're going to block them. You try and make that cross-seam pass. We're going to intercept it. We're going to break it up. That's what ultimately precipitates the McDavid breakaway. And look, I am never going to be able to, as someone who's only 28 years old, be able to contextualize how great Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux were. I can watch the tape, I can try, I can read the stats, I can read the books, but when I watch Connor McDavid touch the puck at any given moment of any given game, I have the potential to see something I have never seen before. And that sequence tells you all you need to know. And yes, is McDavid the best player in the world? Of course. He's still got to score the goal. He's still got to put that puck in the net. And I didn't have a moment of hesitation as he was gathering himself to make that move on the breakaway to jam it past Casey DeSmith at that point. And this was a really well-rounded effort. You had some great saves from Stuart Skinner in there in the second and third period. He had a really nice one on Mikko Rantanen. He had a really nice one on Tyler Seguin. I thought the Stars did a valiant job of pushing as hard as they could for offense, of getting pucks where they wanted to attempt to. And I think, to the Stars' credit, and unfortunately the reason why they got eliminated, they're really good at executing their system. They are really good at playing the way they're supposed to. And as we've talked about ad nauseum on this show since I've been the host, when hockey teams are struggling, their coach is going to clap their hands and start saying, let's play our game, let's play our game. And what do I mean by that? In hockey, unlike what you would see in football or basketball, a hockey coach is going to tell their players to double and triple down on what they're supposed to be doing, because in a hockey coach's mind, the reason the team isn't winning is because they're not executing the system well enough. Whereas in football, if you're getting gashed on the ground, you're going to bring an extra guy into the box and try and stop the run. If you're getting killed over the top, you might go to a cover 2 and keep everything in front of you. You might even go to a cover 3 and have a third safety back there. You might be a little more prone to getting attacked up the seams, but at least you're not getting beat over the top. In hockey, you're getting your shots blocked, you're getting lanes clogged, you're not getting pucks to high danger areas. All right, let's go. High to low, high to low, high to low, point shots, deflections. And it's crazy to me how for much of this series, I felt like Tyler Seguin was the Stars' best forward. And that's not to discredit anyone. And I will have a little aside about this in the second segment, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But like, losing to a good team is not a moral failure. The Stars are not bad people because they lost to a better team. The Stars have one of the best lineups in all of hockey, and the Oilers played in a way that frustrated them, that made them a little one-dimensional and took away what made them so good in earlier rounds. So we'll expand on that a little bit more coming up, but the Oilers played this series perfectly. They played just enough defense. They were perfect situationally in knowing when to go to attack versus when to be a little more conservative. And most importantly, and most notably, clinical defense. I talked about it with Hunter Hodes on Thursday's Locked On NHL. The closeout defense in the third period of Game 4 was as good as it possibly can. 3 shots on goal the whole third period. That is a masterstroke in defense. You added Ekholm back, who looked pretty good. And I need to go back, and I'll probably rewatch some of the tape from this game because we're going to have quite a few days till Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. But you take these moments, you take these opportunities as they come, and you don't count your chickens before they hatch. But right now, allow yourself to enjoy this.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Monarch Money makes managing with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
The Dolphins reportedly taking calls for tight end Jonnu Smith.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast.
Adam Schefter dropped a developing news story about an hour ago. Quote, the Dolphins have had trade discussions with the Pittsburgh Steelers about their lone Pro Bowl selection last season, tight end Jonnu Smith, per league sources. Those talks came after Smith expressed an interest in reworking his deal that is scheduled to pay him $4.8 million this season. With Smith seeking a new contract, Miami has sought a trade partner. Last season, Smith set the franchise record for a tight end in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Smith's preference, sources say, is to stay in Miami under a reworked deal. Always something with this football team that gets you sitting up in your chair. I feel like Cosmo Kramer, like, ooh, right? Like, and for anybody who's wondering, no, this is not a wig. I get comments on the YouTube channel every day about the hair. It's styled a different way every day. And this is your thought I was done in front of the camera for the day hairstyle that we're rocking here and now. So I have a lot of thoughts, both good and bad. There's like good, bad, ugly. I get why you would. I get why you wouldn't, with the outlook of potentially moving on from Jonnu Smith. Effectively, what it would be is cashing out, right? That's what you would do as the Dolphins signing Jonnu Smith to a 2-year deal, sets all these big-time numbers. There's a connection with Pittsburgh as their offensive coordinator is Arthur Smith, who's been with Jonnu all over the place. He's the number one Jonnu Smith fan in the world, is Arthur Smith. Down that Pittsburgh tight end room is loaded. So it creates these really interesting simultaneous storylines that you try to process. But let's start with Jonnu Smith and how we got to this point. He was waived after playing in Atlanta most recently in 2023. He played his 4 years in Tennessee on his rookie contract, and he signed a big deal in New England. It was a flop in New England. And he was back with Arthur Smith in 2023 in Atlanta, and then moved on because Arthur Smith obviously leaves, and Raheem Morris is hired, and he signs early in Miami, gets 111 targets, which is 41 more than the next highest amount of targets he's ever had as an NFL player. He has 88 receptions. That's 38 more than the next highest he's had in a season as an NFL player. He has 884 receiving yards, which is 302 more than the next highest he's had in a single season. And he had 8 receiving touchdowns, which he's only gone over 3 receiving touchdowns one additional time in his NFL career. It was his last year in Tennessee, got 8 touchdowns. That's what got him the big deal in New England. So Jonnu turns 30 years old on August 22nd. He was the 100th overall pick in the 2017 NFL draft. This will be year 9 for Jonnu Smith, represented by Drew Rosenhaus. I mentioned that because Miami has a lot of business done with Drew Rosenhaus. The Dolphins have a lot of Rosenhaus clients. They usually play well in the sandbox together. So that's where, when you start hearing league sources, that's usually from the agent side of things. And that's kind of the question I'm asking myself of why now? Why is this sort of thing getting put out now? And I don't have the answer, right? I don't. But as I react to the idea of Jonnu Smith, and I had heard his name kind of dangled out there in April with some people that I had been talking to, that maybe there was some calls being placed about Jonnu Smith. And I kind of dismissed it at the time as, well, the Dolphins, they do their due diligence. They pick up the phone anytime anybody calls, but kind of generally presumed that Jonnu Smith, being such a central piece and a good fit and seemed to really vibe with the players on the team that you're projecting moving forward, I didn't think too much of it at the time. Well, now it's gone public with Adam Schefter here a couple of days before June 1st. So my mind starts going, does Pittsburgh have a corner that maybe they want to move? Does Pittsburgh have a tight end that can serve as the Y player if you're going to be a more 11 personnel focused team as compared to a 12 personnel focused team? Because that was the thing that John Embry, when he talked about Jonnu Smith last week, in addition to talking about just getting the yards that's available to him with the ball in his hands, and John Embry said he left about 185 yards out on the field. And I appreciated that messaging from Embry at the time, because Jonnu was the one definitive success story for the Dolphins last year offensively. The individual player that you bet on that had a big time successful season was Jonnu Smith. The other thing that he mentioned was being a more consistent blocker to help in the run game. And that's really never been Jonnu's thing. So as I sit here and I start to take the inventory, which is what we're going to get into next, of why you would or why you should or why you shouldn't or why you could move Jonnu Smith and entertain this idea, one of the things that sits on the why you should side of the fence is the Dolphins have to get the running game back on track. And for as good as Jonnu Smith was, and they used Jonnu Smith and they used all these pass catchers as a pseudo extension of the run game, Jonnu Smith's strength is never going to align with getting the run game back on track. And when you go 12 personnel and you go heavy, that's a role for Jonnu that it has been part of the blockade and why he hasn't necessarily taken a great deal of snaps unless it's with Arthur Smith, right? Like he didn't crack 526 snaps in 2 years in New England. And, he was 652 in Atlanta with Arthur then. And his last 2 seasons in Tennessee was over 700. He was 626 this year at 55% rate. And you saw there's give and take with certain opportunities with Jonnu. And that's part of the conversation about where does he win versus where do you need to make concessions or have a different player to play the role.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking your favorites or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
If you did not see the news yesterday, and it came out of the clear blue for at least for me, Alai Kalaniavalu has signed with the BYU football program. Now, some of you may remember that name, some of you may not. This kid has had quite a high-profile recruitment, and it comes down to essentially I've never seen, and I'm admitting something here. I have never seen the entire series of The Office all the way through. I know a lot of the moments. I know a lot of the memes that are out there, but I've never seen the entire show. But I do know there is this snip, snap meme that I see all the time on social media, and it fits what Alai Kalaniavalu did here during his recruitment. Remember, this is a kid who played at Timpview High School and then moved to Bishop Gorman High School down in Las Vegas. Plays on the interior of Bishop Gorman's highly touted football program, on the interior of their offensive line at center, and maybe the strongest high school offensive lineman I have seen in quite some time. He is a powerful individual, 6'4", 300+ pounds, and there are some people that believe that at some point in the near future, obviously after he gets home off of a mission, because that's the other strange thing about this, is he signed with BYU despite already being in the mission field. He's serving a mission in the Denver area, if I recall correctly. Speaking of Denver, Colorado, but he is signed with BYU.
If you remember his recruitment out of Bishop Gorman, he committed to Oregon. Then obviously decided to flip his commitment to BYU last football season, speaking of 2024. And then just days, I mean, maybe, no, it wasn't even days. It was the day of the early signing window. There was kind of a question like, hey, why hasn't Eli Kalaniavalu signed with BYU yet? Well, it comes out that he has flipped his commitment back to the Ducks and signed with Oregon. So he signed the paperwork, obviously, and was going to be an Oregon Duck. And now, 4 or 5 months later, he's decided BYU is where his heart lies and where he wants to be. Could he change his mind again? I guess he could. But for now, celebrate the win for BYU. This is their third 4-star pickup in the past month and change. Nusi Taumueapea obviously transferring from Stanford in the wake of Troy Taylor's firing. Bear Bachmeier, same deal, a 4-star quarterback in his own right, comes to BYU after Troy Taylor was fired, and he ultimately decided to transfer out of the Stanford football program. And now you still one of the top-tier prospects from the Oregon Ducks, and I say top tier because if I recall correctly, Mitch Harper may have written this, I think. He is, speaking of Kalaniavalu, he would be the 8th highest rated signing all time for BYU if you go by recruiting rankings. Obviously, they go back to the late 90s in most people's minds, early 2000s. It's a pretty incredible pickup for BYU. Obviously serving a mission, so he's a part of the 2027 recruiting cycle if you want to keep track at home, so you will not see him for a little while. But he's got family connections to BYU. I believe it was his brother-in-law. Was it Sonny Makasini? I'm trying to remember who it was that his sister is married to inside the BYU football program, and that obviously was a draw when he originally flipped to BYU. But then I'll be blunt, NIL and some of the offers that Oregon was throwing his way, I wouldn't have been hard. It would have been hard for me to ignore the amount of money that Oregon was apparently willing to offer him in NIL to flip back and sign with the Ducks. Ultimately, as Hart decided he wanted to be a BYU, I can't rule out that BYU maybe came back with an NIL offer, but this is a kid out there serving the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a full-time missionary. I don't think he's in hard negotiations with Coug Connect or with the Royal Blue Collective about, hey, I need this amount of money to sign with BYU, because, you know, he's kind of got other things on his priority list. But really, really crazy recruitment, but all's well that ends well for BYU. And as I said in my YouTube short, to quote the famous line from Dumb and Dumber, this proves once and for all that you cannot triple stamp a double stamp. You're welcome, everybody. All right, but the other thing about this real quick is it shows that BYU's got major cachet on the recruiting front. NIL has played a role in it, absolutely. But I believe for years, and I think a number of you out there believed this right along with me, that if and when BYU finally was able to recruit on an even playing field with the likes of Utah and the rest of the Power Four out there, that BYU would more than hold their own. We are just seeing BYU start to blossom as a recruiting power. And it goes back to a topic we had on today's podcast in that first little stanza. I think BYU is a legit power. That was one of the quotes from an anonymous coach inside the Big 12. Well, you know what? What makes you a power is to have legitimate 4-star talent. I have long said that BYU has routinely brought in 2- and 3-star talent, speaking of the recruiting process and the recruiting rankings, and they have gotten 4- and 5-star production out of those players. What could you do with more? I say it all the time. What can you do more with more? Well, you know what more is? 4-star talents. High-level 3-star talents that BYU could have only dreamed of landing when they were an independent football program. And guys said, hey, I want to play Power 5 football. Love you, BYU, but I'm going somewhere else. That's completely changed. The whole identity for BYU on the recruiting front is changing right before our very eyes. They're bringing in legit 4-star talents, and those 4-star players, you're going to build the next iteration of BYU football under Kalani Sitake on the backs of those guys. And it sure looks like the future is very, very bright for BYU. Yeah, I know right now it seems a little murky with the Jake Retzlaff situation obviously pending out there. But the other side of it is there are 22 players on the field at any given 11 players on the field at any given time, 22 players offensively and defensively in a game. Quarterbacks are of utmost importance. There's no doubt about it, but you have to have other players around them to succeed. And a guy like Eli Kalaniavalu, he's probably going to be the center of the future for BYU. And BYU's had some pretty good centers of late. Connor Pay, Tejan Karoma, Jake Empey. They've had James Empey, not Jake Empey. James Empey. They've had some really, really strong offensive linemen. Eli Kalaniavalu, at least on paper, looks like he is as good, if not better than those guys coming into BYU. He's rated 94 by 24/7 Sports. He adds, once again, to an incredibly strong 2025 recruiting cycle. And the crazy thing is, even with those additions of the 2025 cycle, 2026 could one-up it. That's what BYU is doing right now. They are completely changing their whole image on the recruiting trail. And it's happening, as I mentioned, right before our very eyes. Enjoy it. This is the coming of age moment for Kalani Sitake and the BYU football program. It's something they have long craved, the chance to really recruit with a Power 4 label attached to their name. NIL has absolutely changed the game, the transfer portal as well. But BYU's taking advantage of every opportunity given to them. And what we are observing now is the fruits of those labors. It's not been easy. BYU had to grind for a really, really long time. A, to get into the Big 12, and obviously B, to go out there and bounce back from a 5-7 debut campaign that had some people worried they couldn't compete at the Power 4 level. And then they put together an 11-2 campaign last year that showed, oh yeah, they absolutely can compete. That's what young men want to do. They want to play high-level football, but more importantly than that, they want to win along with it. They want to develop their skills and go to the NFL. That's kind of the next step for BYU, is get these 4-star talents into the program, develop them, get that, once again, 5-star production from them, and then send them off to a professional career if that's what's in the cards for them. It's a really, really cool thing to watch BYU becoming what a lot of us, and yours truly included, wanted and have hoped they could be for quite some time, and it's literally happening in real time right now.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Monarch Money makes managing with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You might disagree, but Joe Flacco has the right perspective when it comes to being a mentor for the Browns rookie quarterbacks.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast.
I think Joe Flacco is taking the right approach to his role as a mentor for this quarterback room in these Cleveland Browns in general, because I think the mentorship label gets thrown around a lot very loosely to certain players. And especially at the quarterback position, when it's like you're viewed as a bridge quarterback or a stopgap quarterback or somebody who's paving the way for the next thing, the next quarterback, the next player who's going to take your job. And we expect that guy to be in Flacco's position to come in and basically just be like the teacher, the Jedi master training the Padawan to these young guys. And I don't know that that's fair to label somebody as that. And so this is what brings me to Joe Flacco's comments from Wednesday when he met with the media at OTAs, because I think he brings up a really valid point here in terms of the way that the mentorship conversation gets framed, both within the media, but also among fans when it comes to this sport, when it comes to football, when it comes to the quarterback position and training a rookie to eventually take over. And I think he's right about the way he's going about it, even though I think some people might disagree and sort of prove his point here. I'm going to play you this clip. It's about a minute long. I'll react on the other side, but I think his commentary is really, really sound. And I think he has the right approach to how the mentorship role, if you will, is supposed to be treated as an NFL competitor.
It's a talking point. You can kind of like use it because it's a good question to bait somebody into answering, and no matter how they answer it kind of makes the guy that's answering it look bad. If I say I don't want to be a mentor, I look bad. If I say I do want to be a mentor, then I look like an idiot that doesn't care about being good and playing football. So it's one of those questions that no matter what I say, you guys can write what you want to write about it. And there's a lot of questions like that. That's why you end up having to try to avoid them. I tend to try to be honest, and and I've said I'm not a mentor. I play football. And in a quarterback room, there's a lot of times there's been a ton of times where there's learning experiences, and I have a lot of experience, and I can talk on things, and hopefully they listen. But it's not necessarily like my job to like make sure they listen to me. And, you know, hey, like hopefully you have a really good relationship with the guys that are in the room, and you naturally want to do that, you know. But that was a long-winded answer, but that's ultimately why I think you guys ask it.
I think that's really, really well said. Really, really poignant point from Joe Flacco. Just this idea that if you say as a player, you're not here to be a mentor, you get labeled a certain way as being selfish or, you know, not, you know, being a good teammate. And if you say you are going to be a mentor, then everyone just, you know, downplays your value to the team, and they just assume, well, he's not committed. He's not here to help the team win right now. He's just here to like get this next guy ready and be like that trainer to a young quarterback. And I think that that's probably fair in terms of like the perception that either of those answers comes with. And it's media related. It's also, I think, fan related. I think fans sometimes take those narratives and run with them as well and frame a guy a certain way based on how he answers it. And I do think to this point, this is like the third time Flacco's talked about the mentorship thing and that idea and that concept. And he has said the same thing over and over again. And I think the first couple times he said it, people did sort of start to turn towards, well, hey, he's not here to be a mentor. Like this guy doesn't care about his teammates. And I think that's unfair. I do. I think if you're Joe Flacco, and this is why I think he's taking the perfect approach to this role and the responsibilities that come with it, because that's the thing. There's responsibilities that come with it, but it's not like his cross to bear, if you will, either. Like he's not being brought in here and paid the Browns didn't sign him and say, hey, your job is to get these quarterbacks ready for the next level. No, they brought him in here because they want him to play for the Browns potentially, and they want him to compete for the starting job, and they believe he can help them win football games. That's why he's here. And he sort of he expounded on that. He alluded to that by saying, I'm here to play football. I'm a football player. I want to play. I want to compete. I want to start. That's his goal, is to be the starting quarterback on this team and go out and win football games, and not be some mentor to some young quarterback or two young quarterbacks in this instance. That's his goal. Like, he still wants to play football. And listen, as much as fans can be critical of players for certain ways they go about things, I think everybody can agree that you want your players to be here and be competitive, and you want them to be here and have that desire to, like, I want to be great. I want to start. I want to play. You don't want some guy who's just here freeloading off of the Browns, if you will, getting a check just to kind of hang around and be a good teammate. Like, that being a good teammate is part of the puzzle. But yes, like, you want players who are passionate about playing football and about winning and about playing at a high level. That's what Joe Flacco still is, even at the ripe old age of 40. He has that competitive drive. And so I have no problem with him admitting that that's what still is fueling him to be here. And that is, it's not his job to come in and just like prepare, get young quarterbacks prepared for the next level. That's not what he was brought here for. But along those lines, and this is the other thing he sort of pointed to, I think the mentorship piece just kind of happens naturally if you are going about your business the right way. And Joe Flacco certainly does. He is a pro's pro in that way. He shows up, he puts the work in. He does, as he mentioned, have a wealth of experience that he can sort of reflect back on and hopefully instill in the two young quarterbacks if they have questions or when they talk to him and all these different things. At one point during that same press conference, he joked that Dylan Gabriel was trying to like copy his cadence. So he's already picking up on something that he wants to do like Joe Flacco. And Shedeur Sanders, I think he mentioned, was like asking him questions about how he saw a certain play. So like those things matter. And that's where I say it happens naturally. If he's going about his business the right way, if he's showing up to work, the mentorship piece will just kind of take hold without him having to put in any extra effort to teach these guys. They will come to him. They will see leading by example is a thing too. And him showing up to work and doing what he's doing is going to rub off on those guys in some capacity without him deliberately having to sit down and be like, here's the XYZ on all these different things. So I think that's the important thing to keep in mind here. It's not that Joe Flacco can't be a mentor. It's not that he won't try to instill as much knowledge in these young guys as he can. It's just that he's not making that his priority, because it's not his priority. His priority is to come in here, compete for the starting job, be a football player, be a quarterback potentially for this team. And that's what he's focused on. So I appreciated the candidness from Flacco. I think he's on the right track here. I think he's taken the total right approach to this quote unquote mentorship role that people are expecting him to have. And I do think, just by nature of who Joe Flacco is, it will rub off on those young guys, and they'll pick up some things from him that will help them throughout their careers.